This time, we're setting our coordinates for Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. And, as a fellow sci-fi fan, I can't help but get excited about a film that dives headfirst into those really big questions,
Yeah.
you know, about our place in the universe, about
No.
what it all means.
Oh, absolutely. Interstellar definitely doesn't shy away from those big, heady concepts. It sparks those debates about time, about human choice, really, even about what it even means to be free.
Exactly. And that's precisely where we're going with this deep dive. We're going to explore how the film, how it portrays space. It's almost like this active character, this force, right?
Yeah.
And then there's that whole mind-bending concept of time dilation, how that impacts relationships and just how it affects everything. And then the idea that freedom, well, it's not just about breaking free from chains. It's about the choices we make, the choices that ripple through time and space.
It's going to be fascinating to really delve into all of that. Interstellar, it embraces these complex scientific ideas, but it manages to weave them into such an emotional story, one that resonates with all of us, on a human level.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with this idea of space being a character. It's so much more than just a backdrop in this film.
Oh, for sure. It's almost like a presence, this force, like in that early scene where the Endurance, it detaches from Earth. You get this sense of awe, but also vulnerability.
Right.
It's not just an empty space they're traveling through, it's something more.
It kind of reminds me of how some of the classic sci-fi authors like Lovecraft, they would describe space, this cosmic horror, and abyss. But in Interstellar, there's also this wonder, this drive to explore the unknown.
Right, right. And what's really fascinating is how the film, how it uses space travel to really push the boundaries of what we understand about science. Like wormholes, for instance. They're depicted as these shimmering gateways bending space and time. It's visually spectacular, but it also makes you consider the possibilities.
And it's not just wormholes. There's black holes, too, like Gargantua, the massive one. It plays such a crucial role.
Oh, definitely. Gargantua, it's not just a special effect. It represents the power, the mystery of the universe. And you see the characters, they're wrestling with the laws of physics breaking down near it. Time gets distorted. It makes you realize how much we still don't know about the cosmos.
It all ties back to this idea of space as a character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Always challenging our assumptions, pushing us to confront the limits of what we know, what we think we know.
It really does. Space in Interstellar, it's this dynamic force, a source of wonder and danger. And it's that unpredictable nature that makes the journey so compelling, so thought-provoking.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got space acting as this powerful force. But then there's the human element, the characters, their relationships. And they're deeply impacted by this journey, by space. And this is where that whole time dilation thing comes in.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Time dilation, it's one of the most, mind-bending results of Einstein's theory of relativity. And Interstellar really brings it to life in a way that's both visually amazing and emotionally impactful.
Okay, but before we go too far down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
can you give us like a quick explanation of time dilation, for those of us who need a refresher on how it all works?
Sure, sure. So basically, time dilation means that time, it passes differently depending on where you are, how fast you're moving. The closer you are to something massive like a black hole, or the faster you travel, the slower time passes for you, compared to someone who's, in a weaker gravitational field or not moving as fast.
So time isn't this constant universal thing. It's all relative, like almost personal.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating in Interstellar. The film shows how it can tear people apart, even when they're connected by love and a shared mission.
And we see this. We see this really powerfully in the relationship between Cooper and his daughter Murph.
Yes, it really emphasizes the emotional toll of time dilation. While Cooper's out exploring space, experiencing time differently because of his proximity to Gargantua, Murph is back on Earth, aging normally. Years pass for her, but for Cooper, it might just be hours, days.
It's tough to watch how their relationship gets strained by this cosmic phenomena. They're literally being pulled apart by time.
It is, and that actually leads us to another big theme in Interstellar, this idea of free will and choice. Even with these laws of physics at play, Cooper still makes choices that ripple through time and space, choices that impact Murph's life and humanity's future.
Which is a great transition to our next point. Freedom in Interstellar. The characters, they're limited by space, by time, but they still have these choices to make. They have this power to shape their own destiny.
Yes, and the film really makes us think about what freedom means. Is it about the absence of limitations, or is it about making difficult choices, taking risks, and accepting the consequences, even if those consequences play out across time and space?
This is where Interstellar gets really interesting, I think, because it suggests that freedom, it's not just about breaking free from those external forces. It's about making choices that align with our values, our love, our hopes.
And those choices, as the film shows, they can have consequences that ripple through time, impacting generations to come.
Wow. So much to unpack here. We've talked about space as this powerful character, this force. Then there's time dilation, bending our minds and affecting relationships. And then this whole concept of freedom, not just the absence of limits, but the power of choice.
It's true. And these themes, they're not just separate ideas floating around. They're all connected, influencing, and shaping each other.
That's what makes Interstellar so captivating. It weaves together these complex scientific concepts, these philosophical dilemmas, and deeply human emotions.
Absolutely. It's a film that sticks with you. It makes you think about those big questions, about our place in the universe, about the nature of time and space, the power of human choice.
So, what are your initial thoughts? As a fellow sci-fi enthusiast, are you starting to see why Interstellar is more than just a space adventure?
I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, your interpretations, before we dive even deeper into the film's symbolism and all of the philosophical implications.
Okay, so Interstellar, it definitely tackles some pretty heavy stuff,
Yeah.
but it does it with such amazing visuals, like that black hole. The first time I saw it on the big screen, I was blown away.
Oh, the visuals are incredible. Nolan, he really uses practical effects and CGI to create this realism that you don't often see in sci-fi.
And they're not just there for show. They really serve the story. Like those scenes in the wormhole, they're visualizing something that's, well, pretty much impossible to grasp. The whole bending of space and time.
You're right, it's not your typical space opera, you know? The visuals are carefully crafted to really enhance the themes, the ideas the film's exploring.
So what about those visual metaphors? Any key symbols or recurring images that stand out to you?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is the contrast between Earth and space. Earth is this dying world, you know, all dust storms and blight. Humanity's barely surviving.
And then there's space, this vast, awe-inspiring, but also incredibly dangerous realm.
Exactly. It makes you think about the film's big question. What is humanity's future? Do we hold on to a dying planet, or do we venture out into the unknown?
Visually, that contrast is just so striking. You've got these muted colors of Earth, browns, yellows, and then the bright blues and blacks of space with stars scattered everywhere.
Yeah. And that really reinforces this idea that space, even with all the dangers, it represents hope, possibility, a place to start over.
Another thing I noticed is the use of light and darkness. It's not just aesthetic, right? It feels like it symbolizes something more, like knowledge versus the unknown.
Definitely. Think about when Cooper, he leaves the Endurance to enter the black hole. You go from the sleek spaceship to this vortex of light and data.
It's like he's diving into the unknown, pushing past the limits of human understanding. And the way the light bends around the black hole, it's both beautiful and terrifying.
It really shows how the universe can illuminate and obscure knowledge at the same time. We're drawn to the light to understanding, but sometimes that takes us to the edge of what we can grasp.
Yeah, like those old sci-fi stories. Explorers going to the heart of darkness and finding something that changes everything they thought they knew.
And it's not just the visuals that create that feeling. The music, Hans Zimmer's score, it's so important in creating the atmosphere.
Oh, the music in Interstellar is incredible. Those soaring themes that capture the vastness of space, and then these almost mournful melodies that really show the human cost of exploring the universe.
And the way Zimmer uses silence, it's brilliant. There are these moments of quiet, and it's like the film's holding its breath before something big happens, a reveal or a shift in perspective.
It's true. The silence can be just as powerful as the music itself. It makes you lean in, wait for what's next.
Right. It's like the silence itself is a character in the film, building the suspense, adding to the emotion.
So we've got these powerful visuals, a soundtrack that pulls you in, and then, of course, the characters, dealing with these questions about their place in the universe and the choices they make.
And that's where Interstellar really shines, I think. It uses science fiction to explore these deeply human themes: love, loss, sacrifice, that hope that even when things seem impossible, we can find a way forward.
And I think that's what sparks so much debate. Interstellar, it doesn't shy away from the big questions: reality, free will, even the possibility of something beyond what we can understand.
You're right. It doesn't give you easy answers. It makes you think, question your assumptions. And it invites those conversations about what it means to be human in a universe that's both awe-inspiring and terrifying.
And isn't that what we love about science fiction? It gives us a way to explore these big ideas, these existential questions. And maybe, just maybe, we come away with a deeper understanding of ourselves, our place in it all.
It really does. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore how Interstellar tackles those big questions head on. It'll make you confront your own beliefs about time, space, and reality itself.
I'm ready for it. But before we get there, what are you thinking so far? What are your reactions to all of this?
Okay, so we've talked about space being this character time dilation messing with everything, and the idea of freedom in this crazy vast universe. But what really stays with me after watching Interstellar are those philosophical questions, the ones that they kind of stick with you even after the credits roll.
Oh, absolutely. Interstellar is more than just spaceships and wormholes, right?
Yeah.
It's grappling with these really fundamental questions about what it means to exist.
Right, like what is our place in this huge universe? Are we just insignificant specks, or do our choices, do they even matter in the grand scheme of things?
That's a question that's been around forever, hasn't it? And Interstellar offers this really, really fascinating perspective. On the one hand, it shows us just how vast and powerful the cosmos is, how small we are in comparison. Yeah, those visuals, right? The endurance. It's like a little toy lost in space. And Cooper on that water planet with those massive waves, it's a reminder that we're not really in control.
Exactly. But at the same time, the film also suggests that even with all of that, human choice still has power.
Like when Cooper decides to go into the black hole. Even though it might mean never seeing his daughter again, it's this choice that's driven by love, by hope. And it ends up impacting, well, everything.
That's a perfect example. And that's where Interstellar gets really interesting. It suggests that love, maybe it's more than just an emotion. Maybe it's a fundamental force in the universe, something that can even influence events.
That's a pretty wild concept. But the way it's presented, it feels both scientific and emotional. Makes you wonder, what if love is more powerful than we think? What if it's the answer to some of the biggest problems we face?
It's a possibility the film definitely wants us to consider. And it's not just love. There's also this emphasis on human ingenuity, our ability to solve problems, to adapt, to overcome obstacles.
Yeah, like when Murph's back on Earth trying to solve that gravity equation. She knows that the fate of humanity depends on it. It shows our drive to learn, to push boundaries, to find solutions, even when things seem hopeless.
Yeah, it links back to that idea of free will, right? Even though they're up against these incredible forces, the characters still have the ability to make choices, to act, to fight for their survival, for the future.
So Interstellar is saying that, yeah, we might be small, but our choices, our actions, they matter. They shape our destiny, not just for us, but for everyone.
I think that's a message that really resonates with people, especially those of us who love sci-fi. It speaks to that hope that we're not just along for the ride. We're active participants. And our stories, our lives, they have meaning.
It's both humbling and inspiring, isn't it? We have a place in this, but we also have the power to make a difference.
And isn't that what great science fiction does? It makes us think bigger, imagine more, and embrace the wonder and the mystery of it all.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Interstellar, what are your final thoughts? What questions are you left with? Does it make you feel hopeful? Maybe a little scared? Or both? Share your thoughts, because that's the thing about Interstellar. It keeps those conversations going. It makes us debate, explore, and think about those big questions about ourselves and the universe. And that's a journey worth taking. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep looking up.